Okay. If you have pen and paper, you absorb what I'm about to teach you. Today's kind of big, right? Our trainings. Hey Ryan, can you record it, or are we already recording?
Go now.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so today's kind of a big topic, right? It's one of the most important topics. We've gone over self-love, we've gone over self-analysis. To date, you should be plugged in to who you are, right? You should be a little bit more in tune in terms of who you are and what you're fighting for, right? These are the basics of a life with purpose. One of the biggest driving forces, right? This is not an easy world to live in, right? It's not easy to go after your dreams. It's not easy to pursue and go against the grain. But your why, right? Your why will carry you through the tough times. Your why will carry you through the times when, I don't want to get up, right? Or I don't want to approach that person, or it's not convenient for me, to continue building what I'm trying to build for myself. It's not convenient for me, right? But there's a difference. When you create a why that is so freaking strong that it surpasses everything that you actually need to accomplish, that's when you know that you're on the right path. The guy who really taught me how to approach a why, and that's kind of what we're going to go over, right? We're going to go over the analogy that really creates in your head how powerful your why needs to be, and then some techniques that you can use to really utilize the why. I've seen it, time and time again. People have some good stuff on paper written down as to why it is that they're doing what they're doing. But the second they write it down, they never read it again, right? It needs to be in front of you on a daily basis so you know exactly what you're fighting for. So the guy who really taught me was Simon Sinek, all right? And I'm going to bring the camera around and draw something up. Hi. Right, can you hear me again, brother?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, I'm going to be going in and out, so we're just going to have to deal with it. So 98% of people, Simon Sinek says that they know what they do, right? On a day-to-day basis, they know the activity. They know, the ins and the outs of what they're actually doing, right? He says that very few people know how, right? He probably puts that at like 30%, right? 98% of people know what they do, right? I'm a janitor, or I'm a teacher, or I'm this, right? And how I teach is I do this. I start here, I walk through, I do this, this, and this, and that's how I do what it is that I do, right? But very, very few people, he says that less than 10% know why. Less than 10% know why the fuck they are doing what they're doing, right? And that's the focus. Okay. So the analogy is we look at this like a cell, right? Through our products, people are getting more educated on cells, right? We are hydrating at a cellular level. So look at what a cell does. Look at how it moves, right? Millions of cells together make up you, right? The Y is the nucleus of the cell. If you know anything about biology, the nucleus of the cell is the brain. It controls everything. It controls what the cell does, where it is, what it's doing, right? And Simon will tell you, and every successful person in this world will tell you, that when you can make a why that makes you cry, write that down. A why that makes you cry. If we can build this up so strong and so heavy, okay, then it extends outwards, right? How I'm doing, what I'm doing changes, and what I'm doing changes. So this topic is important enough that we're spending the next 2 days on it. All right? 2 straight days of why are you doing what you're doing? And I promise you, if we can fine tune this, all of a sudden when that alarm goes off, you're up, right? When that client says no, you're on to the next one. And you're checking back with that person 2 months later through the nose, right? When that best friend that you've been friends with forever turns to you and says, this shit's not going to work, right? I don't believe in you, right? When the people who are closest to you are turning to you saying that they do not believe in you, they are not going to buy a machine. They don't believe in the science. They don't believe in this. You persevere. Why? That's why, right? I have it in my head and I have it on paper. So let's talk about some techniques. I cannot stress to you enough how important this is for the success of everything that you're going to do going forward. Everything from today moving forward. Why? Why? Not what. I already know what, right? Not anything other. Not how. Why? Okay? So some techniques when we're writing our whys. You got to have vision. Half, I would say maybe 75% of getting to where you want to be is knowing where you want to be, right? You'll hear me talk about it all the time, about a current zombie apocalypse of there are so many people aimlessly wandering. They have zero purpose for their time, for their actions. They don't know what's going on, right? They're aimlessly wandering. You're not going to be one of them. Okay, the fact that you're on this call right now, right? I'm looking at least 10 people. We got 10 people on this call who refuse to be a part of the zombie apocalypse. Okay, and it starts with vision. Take a seat or take a walk or go to the beach. Spend 5 hours with yourself, right? Some people need more, some people need less. Spend 5 hours with yourself. And like for me, I needed a mirror, right? I needed a mirror in the room. And I had to take a good hard look at myself and figure out what it is that I want. Because when you know what you want, then we can work our way backwards and we can start taking steps towards getting to where we want to be and what we want. Okay, so that vision is extremely important, but you got to take that time to figure out what it is that you're looking for. All right. The second tool that you're going to need is undeniable, right? Put it all on paper, everything. whatever it is that turns your heart, whatever it is that strums on those heart chords in your life, okay, put it down on paper. Whether it's your family that you're fighting for, and get specific, right? Whether it's your family that you're fighting for, right? Whether something happened to you in the past that hurts, and that's why you fight so much, right? For me personally, one of my best friends when I started in the network marketing industry, one of my best friends turned to me and was just like, why don't you give it up? Like, get a real job, is what he said to me. That is ingrained into my get a real job. What does that even mean? What does that mean? Get a real job, right? And that is ingrained in my head, and it's written down in my why. Okay? It's fuel for the fire, right? You know why I don't want to get a real job? Is because I watch 97% of the people around me with real jobs still struggling and with zero time freedom. That's why I'm not going to get a real job, right? I don't believe in that. I believe in that to an extent while I do this, this, and this, right? I believe in a real job to fund this, this, and this. Okay? So everything on paper. And the reason why we did step 1 and 2 before we got to this is because at some point in this lifetime, you got to figure out an appropriate way to talk to yourself, right? And it is not just being your biggest critic, right? There are a lot of us right now. There are a lot of us on this call right now. The way that you talk to yourself needs to change, right? It's one thing to hold yourself accountable. It's a completely different thing to be worse than the people who are talking shit out loud to you, right? If you're sitting there talking shit to yourself in your head, if you're talking negatively to yourself in your own head, that is worse than the outside people talking negatively to you, right? If you in your head don't believe, if you in your head don't have vision, if you in your head are battling, right, it is much worse. The internal war is much worse than anything that's going on outside. That's why we dealt with 1 and 2, so that we could get you to a place where mentally you are in a much better situation to ask yourself, what am I fighting for and why am I fighting for it? So that self-love gets carried into your why, right? My why written down, when you read it out loud, I'm literally talking to myself. I call myself kid, right? I have little like 1 sentence things that like get me fight. Like, come on, kid. Like, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? You are wasting time. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Right? But it's never, you know, you're not good enough. You're not this. You're not that. Right? The negative words, no, can't. They don't exist in my why. Okay? So take that. Now, here's for implementation. And I cannot stress to you how important this is. Write it down. What I personally do is I put a little X and a line at the bottom and I sign it. That is a contract with myself. My why includes what I'm fighting for. It includes the vision of my future. It includes the things that I want down the road, right? It includes having a family, but more importantly, being able to support that family, being able to support those kids, right? Not 1 vacation every 4 years, right? But show these kids the world, right? Laminate it. Multiple copies. Laminate it. And here's the most important part. Every morning, and every night. In that order. Start my day with why. I start my rest. I start my dreams. I carry into my slumber my why. And if you do this consistently for 3 months, I promise you, you will be 10 times stronger come December. You will be somebody that you don't even recognize. Because started at the end, right, with what I want. And I worked my way back step by step to why it is that I want those things. And that why, that's in all capitals and circled as many times as you possibly can. That why is so powerful. It's got so much to it. It's got so much of my personal stuff. Some things that I got from my past, some things that are in my present, all the things that I want in my future are written down, organized, in front of me, on paper. I read it every day. I read it every night. And then I turn into a savage when I leave the house. Why? I just told myself why. And that communication with myself, that way of talking to myself is so supportive and loving and confident that when I walk out that door, like, you couldn't stop me if you tried. Why? You don't need to know why. I got it. I wrote it down. I just read it. That's why. All right. And this is so important because it just really, it's about the mindset. This is what we're dealing with this week. Okay. Before we even touch, if you notice something, like, we have not touched sales yet. We haven't touched Instagram. We haven't touched automation. We haven't touched warm market, cold market, like anything involving sales, we have not touched. Because if your mind isn't in the appropriate place to go have a sales conversation, guess what? Nobody's selling, right? If you're not there, if you're not mentally present, if you're not mentally prepared, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to fail, right? We're here to dominate. And it starts with you. One analogy I've really been loving in regards to what we got going on is a football team. All right, if you watch a football team or even a lacrosse team, that's my sport, lacrosse, it doesn't matter, right? When practice time comes, we have expected as a team, everyone to be individually working their butts off the field. And when we come together, offense, go that way. Defense, go that way, right? And when defense comes together, D-backs over here, linebackers with Coach Ryan, right? D-line with Adam. Okay, these are the concepts that we're trying to build. And if you can take it upon yourself to become the best football player, lacrosse player, right? Addition to society, if you yourself can, on your own time, off the field, right? If you can become the best version of yourself, guess what happens to our team? Right? It's that much stronger. When we really open there are 10 people on this call, mark my words, that 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 5 months from now, we're going to need a different platform because Zoom's not going to be able to hold all of the people. So right now, I'm looking for people to step up, right? I'm looking for people on their own time. Get there mentally. It's only going to help you. And most importantly, and this is the best part about it, it's going to help you in every stage of your life. Everything. This is bigger than a Nagic, right? This is bigger than Wave Makers. This is literally your life in the palm of your hands. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? You going to sit there and do what everyone else does? And we can make a bunch of excuses as to why we're not where we want to be, right? Or we can piss and moan about the adversity, about our current situation, right? We can be products of our environment and let our environment just run us, right? Well, I could never be wildly successful because of this, because I come from this, this, and this, because of this. Like, I have this. Do you see this? Yeah, no, I see that. I also see you, right? And you are fully capable. You are fully conscious and capable. We just need to shift your mindset because you're being a little bitch right now. Right? Is what it is. But it starts with why. So if you have not read the book, It Starts With Why, go get it. Costs you like $10. One of the best investments you can make. Why? If you have not taken the time to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself why, do it. It'll take an hour. For some of you, it'll take 5 minutes. For some of you, it'll take one glance of just me looking myself in the eye. And I know why. Right? For me personally, just my existence, right? That's part of it. Like when I look at myself, this is not by accident. I am not here by accident. What are you going to do about it? You're blessed. You woke up. Over 100,000 people didn't wake up. You woke up. So go. That's why. That's one reason, one part. Why? Does anyone have any questions right now? No? Okay. Homework assignment, right? Nikki T wants whys written down. I'd say we got time for that. So more importantly, what I'm looking for is go get Simon Sinek's book so that it can further develop. There's only so much that I can go into it, right? And there's a concept, right? Some of you are looking at me like, Mike, I know this, right? I will challenge you. To know and not to do is not to know. I will challenge you. Do you know? Is it written down? Have you called yourself out? That was one thing for me that really needed to change, was that personal self-responsibility and like ruthlessness. Call yourself out on all of the bullshit. Most importantly, like when you go to feed yourself excuses as to why you won't reach out to that person, right? So I have a list of 400. So this is like half my contact list, right? In my phone, there's like 500, 600 people written down between these pages. And the other day I was going through it and like, there were some people who I initially was like, well, I don't want to call them. I don't want to talk to them, right? This is the type of stuff. My why combined with my self accountability, I picked up the phone and I called. I left a message, right? Or I got them on the phone and I said, hey, there's some really important things that I need to talk to you about in regards to your health. Is there a time that we can, sit down and talk? Is there a time that we can approach? But these limiting factors that are everywhere around you can be solved with one swift move, right? Look yourself in the mirror, call yourself out on your bullshit, write down why it is that you're fighting for what you're fighting for, remind yourself every day what it is that you're fighting for, and then your job is simple. Fight. That's it. I don't have it all figured out, right? I'm here with you. I don't have it all figured out, but there are some things that I do know, and that is one that is concreted into my brain is when you can establish a fundamentally sound and powerful emotional reasons as to why you're fighting, everything becomes obsolete. Everything becomes super simple, right? And when things aren't simple, right? When that, you finally close your first sale and it doesn't go through, card gets declined, right? Let's figure it out, right? When, 3 months down the road, you got 12 people who all simultaneously decide, hey, I don't want to build, right? And all of a sudden you go back to square one where it's just you building, right? Let's figure it out, right? Anything that comes your way doesn't matter, right? 3 years ago, my best friend killed himself, right? Let's figure it out. Why? Because it's all we got. It's on paper. It's all I have. It's all I have. Is why? Is my purpose, right? When you can create that purpose, you eliminate yourself from being a part of the zombie apocalypse. You eliminate yourself from being part of the 97% that wants to get a real job, that wants to crawl into bed when things get hard, right? That wants to shut the world out when they've had enough. Okay? That's not what we're here for. Right? One of the whys for me as to this entire organization and why we put this together is like me and Nick wholeheartedly believe that we can start pumping out some unbelievable contributions to society through this class. Through 3 months, we can start producing people who are going out on their own and doing unbelievable things on their own because we instilled in them something, right? We taught them something. We built them up, right? Leaders aren't born, they're built to an extent, right? Like, yes, there's stuff that you got to have naturally, but like at the same time, anybody at any time can take their life into their hands, figure out what their purpose is and what they're fighting for, and then go do huge things. So be those people. Be that person for yourself. All right. So vision, take the time, right? Here's your homework. It should be done before we start week 2. We do have sessions where we'll get vulnerable, right? Look forward to that. Those are some of the best things that you'll ever go through and that's kind of some of the things that I had to climb. And when I climbed that hill, everything got better. It's like I had my whys written down and there were some really, really sensitive things that were down on paper that I do not say out loud, and I forced myself to say them out loud. And when I said them out loud, everything changed. It went from being on paper, like those are steps towards accepting what's on paper, right? I know that this is real. I wrote it down on paper. I know that that's a huge factor in my thought process. I wrote it down on paper, okay? Then there has to come a day where you own what's on paper. Own it. It's you. Accept it. More importantly, love it. Self-love, right? I got to figure out how to fall in love with all the ins and the outs of my twisted world. This wild brain that I was blessed with, I got to come to terms with it, and then I got to love it, right? And then I got to use it. I got to accept it. I got to fall in love with it, right? If I can't love the demon, I at least need to accept that it's there and accept its existence, and then I got to use it. Okay, we talk about sales all the time as an emotional endeavor, right? The psychology of sales. If you dive in with me, I will show you some about the psychology of sales, trigger words, right? There was a point in my sales world where
Hey,
I
bro, I'm
live.
gonna talk to you after I hear the what's
Grace,
up.
yo, mute mics. Ryan, you got that? You got the setup. Can you just mute who?
I got it.
But there was a point in my sales career where, like, literally, I could take anybody to the emotional place to say yes. And that's what it is. People will not spend money unless emotionally they are brought to a place where, it makes sense, where the value and, what they're purchasing are on the same level. And that is an emotional transaction. Okay. So first and foremost, handle your emotions. Figure out your emotions. Put it on paper, right? Use those emotions. Okay. I'm an athlete, so I love athletic analogies, but like that grit, that fourth quarter, that overtime grit, right? When you got nothing left in the gas tank, or so you thought, and then the adrenaline, the emotions kick in, and all of a sudden, like you get a second wind, right? That's what we're talking about. And you have the ability, whether you understand it or not, whether you believe me or not, you have the ability to recreate that feeling on a day-to-day basis. Right? You have the ability to psychologically retrain yourself to be fired up and to have that energy and to have that emotions to drive you forward, to keep you pushing forward, one foot in front of the other, relentlessly, right? One foot in front of the other until you accomplish what you set out to accomplish. It starts with why. So that's my challenge for you. We've worked on self-love and self-analysis, right? We've worked on a life with purpose. And now it's time for you to go look at yourself one more time in the mirror, right? And for some of you, this will be the last time that you ever look at yourself in the mirror like this, right? That grit. Put a flag in the ground. Decide who you're going to be, right? When I look myself in the mirror these days, there's some fire. I've made a decision. I know who I want to be, right? That vision took me to the end goal, to the end result, took me to the finish line. And then right before I crossed the finish line, I started backtracking. Here's how I get to there. Here's how I get to there, right? Building blocks to the finish line. So take the time. Go look yourself in the mirror. Decide who you want to be. Plant a flag. Put it on paper, right? Bring in the family. Bring in all the bullshit that's happened to you in your past, right? Some people are driven by finances. Bring that shit in there. Put it down on paper. The other day I'm getting on a flight and I don't dress up. Like, I have no desire. When it's time for me to put a suit on, I'll put a suit on. But like, if I'm traveling, I'm in sweats, I'm in this, I go to bring my bag to the guy who's checking it outside. And he's like, all right, $25 baggage fee. I'm like, cool. And I hand him my credit card and he swipes it. And he's like, it's not going through. And like, I know there's money in there. And then I handed him my Amex card. He swiped it. He's like, this one's not going through. I handed him my Chase Sapphire card. He swiped it. He goes, I'm like, I can assure you, brother, it's not me. Right? But this guy had this look in his eyes. He literally was laughing in my fucking face, looking at me like, yeah, it is you. Guess what got added to my why? Right? Other people's opinions, they matter to a certain extent. I use them. It's how you utilize those things, right? But this guy who's working at this airport, looking at me and laughing in my face about, like, potentially I can't afford $25 baggage fee. Never again. Right? Never again. That feeling where you got to check your bank account before you go out. More importantly, that heart-wrenching feeling of your card getting declined, right? That embarrassment. Who's been there? I've been there. Who's been there, right? Who's been in that place where you get declined because you literally have no money? I've been there. Never again. Use it, right? There are emotional things in this world, and there's two different types of people. There's people who use it and fight and win and persevere and overcome, and there's people who lay down and cry about it, right? So look yourself in the mirror, figure out what you're fighting for, figure out the vision, put it all down on paper, laminate it, right? Read it every day when you wake up. That's part of my morning routine, as I read it in the morning. I don't get up. First thing I do is I grab it off my nightstand. You know, I smack myself in the face a little bit, and then I read it and focus on the words on paper. And then I get up. It's the first thing I do, right? Right before I knock that light, before I go to bed, grab it off the nightstand, I read it, I hit the lights, my mind's turning, carries me into my dreams. But it's a huge step, right? And you can either sit on the other end and be like, oh, yeah, why? Like super cliche, or you can just do it and see the power that it has. So that's what we got for tonight. I'm going to open up the floor for any questions. And we'll see, and we'll just work from there. Does anyone have any questions about what we should be doing? Does anyone have any questions about any of what we talked about in the past couple of days? What Nick has gone over with you guys in terms of self-analysis, self-love, right? Living with purpose. And now we're at this very, very pinnacle place of week one, where you got to start taking steps towards the foundation, right? You got to start taking steps towards really building out and concreting the nucleus of yourself in terms of your actions. So is there any questions on the table?
Hey, Mike, I got a question.
What's up, brother?
So in terms of determining your why, what are some
Yeah.
good questions to ask yourself? Like
Some
you were
good
saying,
questions to ask yourself?
What you saying, like, where do you want to be, what you want, and like understanding that, but like what are some other good questions to ask yourself when determining what's important?
Yeah. I personally, so everyone can do it differently. I'm a big believer in who, what, where, when, why. You know what I'm saying? Who am I fighting for? Who am I fighting for? And number one on the list needs to be yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
What am I fighting for, right? I am one of those people who the material world doesn't run me, but ooh, do I love me some of that, you know? So when I get into the what, like I actually put that stuff, you know, like the tangibles, I'll put that down because I do want those things. And I am going to fight. You know, there is a piece of me, and this is where we really get into the individual. Everyone is different on this call. Everyone has different morals, values, you know, like their thought process is different. So I would start there. Write down who, what, where, when, why. Right? Where do I want to be in 10 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Put it down on paper. Right? When? Right?
I love it. Great.
So those are some simple things, and the things that I really focus on are what triggers my emotions the most. What do I get the most emotional about? And it's usually my family.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's some things to start with, right? And get that book. Simon Sinek will give you, you know, some hints on where you should be going.
Mm-hmm.
And start with there.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
brother.
Great call.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard you mention something about you said when you put your wad down, you said don't put any negative words. Is that what you said?
So there's a difference, and this is why we took care of 1, 2, and 3 before we got here. Who's got the background noise? Can we just mute everyone? Thanks, brother. So here's the thing, and I learned this from a guy named Jason Silva. He's a super tripped out. He runs a show on Nat Geo, and his Facebook is super engaging. He's real big on he goes into a real weird place with his thought process. But what I did take from him was we can literally change the past, right? That's how he starts. He says, you can literally change the past. And it's not that you actually change the past. It's that you retrain your brain to think about the past differently, right? Let's take relationships, for example. The chick broke my heart, right? And when I look back on that, my negative thought process can be depressed about it and sad about it and only think about the negatives, that she broke my heart, that she cheated, that this happened, whatever, right? Relationships have an abundance of hard things that go through, right? And we can look at them negatively, or we can look back and think about, yeah, that all happened, but I grew so much from that relationship. I gained so much. We had so much fun. We did this, and this. So retraining your brain. So when I say don't put negative things down, I'm not saying don't write the bad, right? Write it in a way that is constructive. Write it in a way that is positive. Positive psychology, right? It's something that as you guys work with me, you'll grow. Like, I'm fighting to not only create that doctorate, but then get that doctorate in positive psychology. Because the power of looking back and thinking positively about it and taking from it and growing is, for me, it's everything for success. It's everything for growth, is being able to learn from my mistakes constructively, right? It's learning how to call myself out on my bullshit constructively, right? It's learning how to talk to myself positively while there's a line between you're just ignorant, you're just ignoring the past, or I'm using the past constructively to move forward. So that's what I mean when I say the negative. It's all about the self-love and the way that you talk to yourself, right? I have no problems. There's stuff in my why, and this is where the vulnerability comes out, man, is there's some stuff that hurt me, right? That broke me. But I got 10 times stronger because of how I viewed it and went forward. Through my positive psychology, I learned, I grew, and I went forward. Was it tough? Yes. Did it hurt? Yes. Was it sad? Right? Was it pitiful? Was there a point in time where it was pitiful how sad it was? Yes, yes, and yes. But I looked at it from a positive lens, right? And I grew. Does that answer your question, Manny?
Yeah, that does. I just kind of need another example that I guess on how to write it.
Self-talk, man. I can't tell you how to talk to yourself. I can't. It's counterproductive. That's you, big boy. That's you and yourself, right? So for me specifically, I talk to myself like the best coaches I ever had talk to me, right? They weren't the nicest, right? I had one coach, Kevin Giblin, lacrosse coach. If I'm not yelling at you, it means I don't give a shit if you get better, right? And he yelled. He was a little Italian guy. He was loud. Right? He was the loudest guy on the field all the time, right? And when the crowd would go quiet, Patani, what are you doing? Right? That's, for me, that's my self-talk, right? Is that style. So I recommend that you just take the time, man. All it takes is time, and it's not going to happen overnight. But start figuring out the best way that you learn, right? And then be that teacher. The greatest teacher is the teacher within, right? So however it is, buddy, that you want to come to terms with what happened, however it is that you want to, talk about it to yourself, that's the language that you use, because that's all this why is, right? I write my why as if I'm the teacher, I'm the coach, I'm my own coach, So like that language that's involved. And there'll come a time, man, where I read it to you, just me and you, one-on-one, and you'll hear the language. It's like the kid is talking to himself because I am. It sounds like that because I am, right? But, in regards to like specifically, how do I write that? That's you. That ain't me. Right? Why don't we link up on a one-on-one over the next 24 hours, and I'll get raw with you, and I'll tell you some things, and then we'll see if it doesn't paint a picture in your head of how you should be, communicating with yourself, right? It's constructive, it's critical, right? I get real into it, right? I call myself out, and then I go forward. I call myself out with no intentions of being hard on myself, right? I have no intentions of breaking myself, and every intention of building myself up to the point where I can walk out and face the world with confidence, with strength, right? This is the why. That conversation. And it's so simple, right? Or put it in front of you and read it before you walk out the door and see if it doesn't change everything. The way that you walk into that Starbucks, the way that you walk into that library, the way that you walk into that class, the way that you raise your hand when the teacher has a question, right? The way that you handle, this, and this. It all changes when you change your mindset going into the day.
Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. That helps.
For sure, man. Any questions? Speak now or forever hold joke.
Yeah, what's up, Mike? So with the why, right? So, does it make sense that for example, I'm going to build on the who, what, where, and why, right? With the who, who do I want to be? That's when you ask why, after you answer that first question, you can go deeper, right? Who do I want to be? Well, you can say I want to be a firefighter, right? But then you can say, why do I want to be a firefighter? You can keep going deeper, each of these questions, and the deeper you get, I feel like it's going to get to more of an emotional place. First the answers are going to come from your head, but the more times you ask why, going to get, you're going to start feeling it from the heart. The answers you start to give. So I think it's a good idea, building off who, what, where, and why. Who do I want to be? What do I really want? And then why do I want that? Keep asking why, going deeper and deeper and deeper. I think that that's good right there, man. I think
Yeah,
over and over again.
I would challenge you, Saul, to find the balance, right? Because I can't read 10 page, like I could write a novel about who I am and why I want to be. Like I can't read that in the morning and at night, right? So like from a personal standpoint, go as far as you can go. From a personal standpoint, go as deep and as far as you will let yourself go. And there's going to come a point where like your subconscious is going to stop you. I don't want to go any deeper. This hurts. It hurts to think about. It hurts to work on. I don't want to go any deeper, right? There's a breaking point for everyone where the scars are so bad, right? And the nerves so, tender that they don't want to go, right? Push through it. But what you end up putting on paper should be an overview, right? With specifics, right?
Yeah.
I don't need, for me personally, and this is just the way that I've done it, and it's worked out really well for me. So if you want to write yourself a book and read it, you know, every day and every night, that's your personal choice. For me personally, I took that dive. I broke through that wall. I got ugly. It got much uglier than I thought it was going to get, right? And then on paper was the key points to remind me of how ugly it got. So I didn't need to, in words, you know, remind myself of every single thing, but the overview is there to where, because of my self-analysis, because of my living with purpose, my self-analysis and my self-love, right? I could write out an overview that would instantly take me there, right? On its own. So that's what I would say is like my biggest life mantra is balance with everything in my world. Balance. So the way that I chose to write my why is it's very balanced in terms of what's really on paper, and the words that are on paper have the ability to trigger the thought of everything that's not on paper. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
But balance it out, brother. Balance it out, and it is gonna do great things for you. Your days become more productive. Your level of tenacity and fight goes through the roof because you've put purpose behind it, but not just any purpose. Like you've put emotional purpose behind your days, and it changes everything. It impacts everything.
Cool, man. Thanks. That was good.
Sure. We got an open line. Questions. Oh man, Chase over there about to eat good. Stacey.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. Yeah, that was an awesome class, though, dude.
I appreciate it, man.
Really, yeah.